Great, Ferdie. It's good to see you again. I know that we've touched base a while ago, and I've met a great few people of your team over the past few weeks in an incredibly important and a campaign that's really gaining momentum in South Africa. And as you and I both know, touching on one of the most important areas that for a business owner and for, of course, the SME that's run by that business owner. So first of all, Ferdie, a big welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Mike, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to actually partner with the National Small Business Chamber, and also thank you for your members joining us today. And I hope there's some nuggets that they can pick up out of this conversation that will help them in their businesses and in their journeys.
Ferdie, I have no doubt, and of course I've gained that over the past few weeks. And you know what I love about what you guys are doing, Ferdie, is that it's a campaign that's all power towards how to tips now with everything that you can do right now to make a big change in your lives and the lives of an SME. But Ferdie, of course, I've got to get into this, and I've got a few questions. So if you don't mind me, I'm going to refer to some of my notes here, because often these are spontaneous questions. But importantly, from the NSBC side, why is Experian working with the NSBC to drive financial education to SMEs?
Mike, so right in the beginning of 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world, Experian globally sat back and said, we just can't let this happen, because we were sort of, with the data at our fingertips, saw what was happening to the world. And we kicked off this campaign called United for Financial Health in early 2020. And the whole idea of United for Financial Health is that we as Experian, through education, decided that we wanted to touch at least 100 million lives of individuals out there through financial education to help them to become more resilient and robust following this pandemic, because this pandemic has had absolutely devastating effects on not only businesses, but individuals. And individuals at three levels. One, mentally, that worry of how do I pay for something, or how I'm going to put my kids to school. Physically, because we were in different circumstances, locked up, isolated. And then lastly, financially, a lot of businesses did not make it, and a lot of people lost their jobs or got paid a lot less. And so we thought, let's get out there. And we being one of, in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, one of Experian's larger businesses, we were looking around for who would be a good partner to do this. And typically, this was driven at a consumer level. And we found you guys out there, and we thought, wow, what an opportunity. Small and medium enterprises forms such a big part of South Africa, and is, as we know, one of the cornerstones of employment in South Africa. I think roughly about 2/3 of all people in South Africa is formally employed by SMEs. And so it spoke to us at two levels. One, how do we help small and medium enterprises? But then secondly, also, how do we help the individuals, not only those that own these businesses and companies, but their employees themselves, and get to that 100 million number? And you just made up the perfect partner for us. And so, yes, here we are today running this campaign with you guys. And we hope that we can reach, through your network, a number of people and improve the lives of people and get them more financially fit and more resilient in difficult times.
Ferdie, thank you for that. You know, I know to date we have touched many business owners who run SMEs, and I can show you one thing is that already there's been big changes, and people are truly grateful. You know, in such an important area at the perfect time. So we thank you for what you've done and what you will continue to do with us, and the partnership is welcome, and we are probably more excited than many other things that we've done in the past 14 years. So because we know the impact that it is making. Now, Ferdie, how have SMEs been tracking from a credit perspective over the past 2 years? What impact has the pandemic had on many of them?
Oh, Mike, I think one of the parts of our economy that was hardest hit by the pandemic and subsequent events has been SMEs. And we immediately saw it from day number one. When that terrible lockdown of the first 5 weeks happened, through our business bureau, the number of inquiries just literally fell off a cliff. Which told us that credit extension and application for credit from SMEs pretty much dried up overnight. And in times like that, when all of a sudden you can't trade, you can't generate revenue, you can't generate cash, SMEs are some of the most vulnerable businesses. They do not have the deep pockets. It is not that easy for SMEs to go and raise capital in the market. They can't go and easily issue a bond or go and do a rights issue or one of those things. And we really, really saw how devastating this impact was on SMEs. And so really, really hard hit in that first phase of it. And we sort of, through our volumes and inquiries, saw a nice pickup and the trend starting to normalize. And then last year, June, July, lo and behold, we had the civil unrest in South Africa, and yet again, small and medium enterprises bore the brunt of it. And it was just like a double blow to a lot of the small and medium enterprises. That said, in the last couple of months, and when I say the last couple of months, from sort of October, November onwards, last year, we have definitely seen a pickup in the number of inquiries processed through our bureau on the SME side. And so it looks like we're sort of entering back into a phase of normalization. The demand is there, definitely, but, and I will say this, lenders definitely out there are still a lot more cautious about who they lend to and on what terms they extend credit. So SME is really, really hard hit by those two things in the last 18 months.
Yeah, no, 100%. We've seen that, Ferdie. Ferdie, and as consumers ourselves, what has some of your credit insights shown on the impact the last 2 years have had on consumers and their credit health in South Africa?
Oh, equally, Mike. So we have something called the Consumer Default Index. So we, through the Consumer Default Index, measure the rate of first-time defaults. And in Q2 of 2020, so this is just as the pandemic really hit, that score peaked to 5.68, which is the highest that score has been ever since we introduced the default index rate. We have seen it coming back. We're still not at the levels pre-pandemic. The score at the end of December, when we measured every quarter, was at 3.45, and it remains relatively stable with a slight downward curve. So quarter on quarter, it went from Q3, 3.5 to Q4, 3.45. But it definitely also impacted individuals significantly. The improvement that we have seen, though, we do quite a bit of research into this, and we look at the behaviors of consumers and what drives this score and what it looks like. So the very first thing is credit aversion. A lot of banks closed taps, as well as other providers of credit in the retail space. If it's a store card or any of those sorts of things, they immediately withdrew till they had more certainty about how this was going to pan out and how things were going to look like. So less credit, but to better quality people out there with a credit score and a credit history, and that helped that score improving. The second thing, strangely enough, is with lockdown, a lot of us were forced to work from home. And still today, there's a number of people who work from home. And that had a positive impact on people's disposable income at the end of the month, because all of a sudden you didn't have to pay for fuel to take the kids to school or to drive to work or a lot of those sorts of things. That car that you would have might have had to go and buy, you could have extended because all of a sudden the mileage didn't just clock up and sort of stopped. And so a lot of people very wisely use that extra disposable income to pay down their debts and make a real concerted effort of getting rid of debt. And then lastly, we have had a very benign interest rate cycle that we have been in. And so therefore, that also helped consumers quite a bit in terms of that burden that they have to carry in terms of repayment. So overall, the start extremely tough, things starting to normalize, some really smart people out there using their money and their extra disposable income in the right way. The low interest rates really also helping all of us as consumers to just make our commitments and meet our commitments.
No, absolutely, Ferdie. Your insights are absolutely well received, and I think it kind of gives us some light at the end of the tunnel. We've seen a much more positive and resilient outlook for the year ahead. So maybe those figures are very much the reason why. And then, Ferdie, that leads us to our campaign of how to become financially fit and get back on the financial road of recovery. Ferdie, can you explain to us how does credit wellness affect this?
Mike, so myself being a part owner of a small and medium enterprise, I live this every day in my own little business, and three key components of running your business on a day-to-day basis and to make it work. First of all, is your own capital that you put into the business. That's your one source that you have to build a business and to grow it. The second thing is cash. And that's what you generate out of your revenue and when your creditors pay you, or your debtors pay you. And then lastly is debt. And those three components is so critical in the mix of funding a business. And the last component part, in lots of instances, is either overlooked or wrongly understood, or just not correctly applied and used. And so I always talk to people about good debt and bad debt and what do you use it for? And when I mean bad debt, not in the sense of it gets written off, it is when you actually go and lend money for the wrong reasons. It is when you go and draw on an overdraft to go and buy a car or to extend a plant, whereas long-term debt in that instance would be good debt, whereas short-term debt to finance a long-term asset, bad debt. And so understanding all of that really critical. But part number two of this is, and this is what a lot of people we realized in South Africa was not aware of, is that credit bureaus, and specifically ourselves, have a part of our bureau that is specifically dedicated to businesses. And that's how we refer to it as BI. It's our business information part of our bureau. And in there, we, as for an individual, create a credit report for lots and lots of businesses. Now, this credit report is such a fundamental and critical thing to any business when I was talking about that mix of funding between debt, capital, and cash reserves. Really understanding what your SME's credit report looks like, that business report becomes such an important tool in your day-to-day management and running of your business and really understanding it.
Now, Ferdie, and in all of that, what is Experian's role as a credit bureau?
So, primarily, Mike, our role as a credit bureau is that we exchange information and data with providers of credit, and they in turn feed us as a bureau with information on two levels. Fundamentally, the bureau started, or the main purpose of it is driven by the National Credit Act, and we're one of the key people out there through our credit reporting and generating credit reports, to make sure that, one, there's no reckless lending happening out there in the market to consumers, and then two, that people don't find themselves where they get over indebted. So the reports that organizations draw from us forms the cornerstone, step number one in that process of application for credit. And that is why we are there. So we are the custodians of this data. We take all of this data and the masses of it, we aggregate it, and we then turn that into a meaningful report that providers of credit can actually use to make proper credit decisions, so that the guy on the other side of the table actually can get the best possible deal. So that's really our role that we play in this whole ecosystem. We're not there to blacklist people. It's a myth, and it's still a very real one out there. We do a lot more than that, and really understanding that report of yours becomes so important, because it reflects both positive and negative data, and that gives a user of that report all of the information that they need to make a really informed decision about who they do business with.
It makes sense, and you're 100% right. We've seen that also over the years. The big perception is that the credit bureau has blacklisted me, but as you say, it's completely untrue. Ferdie, you mentioned a more inclusive credit economy. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Oh, absolutely, Mike. So if we just look at South Africa, there are so many people in South Africa that at the moment, either as individuals or who run and own SMEs, actually haven't got the opportunity to partake in the formal financial system that is out there. We refer to them as the credit invisibles. The most difficult thing, and I think all of your members will agree with this, and if there was a button to go and sort of raise your hand, they would all say the most difficult thing to do is to get that first loan from a bank, or to get that first line of credit extended to you. And so the whole idea of us as Experian is not only to provide the service that we do, but to bring all of these people that can actually form of this formal credit ecosystem of ours into the fold, and make sure that they then can partake in a much more formalized process that gives them better terms, that helps them to grow their business in a more sustainable way, but also that gives them access to lending and credit facilities at times when they actually really do need it, and they don't have to turn in desperation to other sources of funding, like borrowing from family, or especially individuals going to loan sharks or those sorts of people. And for us, that is absolutely, absolutely critical. Is how do we take all of those people that is out there at the moment, part of the economy, contributing, but they're not part of this inclusive big ecosystem of ours. And that is what we're really, really trying to do as Experian over and above our normal day jobs.
So to all our attendees out there, Ferdie, I don't know, on the bottom right, we've got our emojis. Do you agree with what Ferdie said there? Are you happy with what he said? Usual emojis at the bottom right. There we go, Ferdie. You've got the thumbs up coming there. So there we go. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that input. Okay, Ferdie, what is the value of our SMEs in understanding both their personal as well as their business credit reports and scores?
The value of it is like that in a number of different ways. So the very first thing that a lender will do typically when a SME or individual applies for credit is they will ask for a credit report. There's very, very few people that nowadays will just do this blindly. The big financial institutions, they have got large credit teams, but they are customers of ours. So the very first thing is we will get a knock on the door and they will say, can we please have the credit report for Animosis Pty Limited. They have applied for a loan or overdraft for 200,000 Rand, and can we please have the credit report? The people on the other side has credit reports, and they are specialists at analyzing them, and so they go through these things line by line. If you as a SME do not have exactly the same understanding of what each of those data fields in your credit report means, you could be inflicting self-harm. You can very unnecessarily shoot yourself in the foot, miss out on an opportunity to get a loan, or the terms of the loan could be a lot worse than what it could have been if that report of yours was actually a quality report. And so quality reports and you truly understanding your own credit report becomes absolutely, absolutely vital in the day-to-day running of your business. It is as important as checking your bank balance and understanding your cash flow is that credit report and what is happening on that credit report, because it forms one of the biggest parts of the decision-making in a lending decision for any extender of credit. And so the accuracy of the data that is in there, the completeness of the data, the more information that is in that report and that tells a story about your business, those things are absolutely critical that SMEs and owners of SMEs start getting to grips with their own credit reports for their businesses. And then in some instances, you will also find that your SME report, the business report, is actually tied to you as an individual. So equally important. And say this is for the National Credit Act, if your turnover is less than $1 million or your net asset value is less than $1 million, you then fall within the net of the National Credit Act, and therefore ultimately the lender with your consent will also draw your individual credit report. And so all of a sudden you will find that these two credit reports become intertwined and they need to speak to one another so that these guys can make the right decisions about your business.
Okay. And Ferdie, so are you saying that if I can contact Experian, get our credit report for our business, and then I can look at the company information and if there's incorrect information or information which is not complete, I can request that that's updated.
Absolutely, Mike. That's one of the cornerstones for us, is that. From a consumer side, it is part of the Act and the regulations, and one follows a dispute process, and there's 20 days in which, when you've logged the dispute, that we will then investigate. And if the credit provider doesn't come back, we automatically will rule in your favor and update then the information which you have disputed. And then from a business perspective, we follow very much a similar process. And so, yes, you contact our bureau, and you sit with your report and you dispute and you say, here's the information which is incorrect. You provide us with the proof and the evidence, and we have mechanisms then to update your credit report and make sure that is actually 100% true reflection of your situation and what it actually looks like.
Yeah, I think that's extremely refreshing to know, and I think that all of us out there who run businesses, I think it's an important exercise to do that. Ferdie, can you give us some practical advice and tips for building a good credit reputation, both from a personal and business perspective? I know this is a big question. What can I do?
Mike, my very, very first piece of advice to anybody would be, you must have a budget. And the way that we budget in our own small SME is, we have our normal budget. Primarily run our business against is our cash flow budget. Old thing, a lot of people will know the saying, turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash flow is reality. And so build that cash flow budget and understand what it looks like and try and stick to it. 2, whenever you complete a credit application and or you apply for a business report, be absolutely honest about what you put in there and be as detailed with the information that you provide in there, as that helps people to make the right decisions. Third thing, budget for debt. Critical component in that mix of how you're actually going to take your business to the next level and how you are going to grow it. And as I say, distinguish between what is good debt and bad debt, but budget for it. Then pay on time. Those accounts that you have, pay on time, make sure you don't miss payments. If you do run into problems, do not ignore letters of demand or telephone calls from creditors. Rather, front up, pick up the phone, go to these guys, have the difficult conversation, see how you can restructure the debt, how you can restructure the terms, and then stick to that plan and make sure that you do it. And then the last thing is just broad rule of thumb. Never ever if you look at your overall budget, never ever sort of go beyond 30% of that budget of yours as debt as a part of your budget that you need to repay. And then the other thing is check that credit report. This is one on a regular basis, your own one on an equally frequent basis. And the nice thing is we at Experian, you can get your own personal credit report for free. You can draw it as many times as what you want to. It's not, we're going to charge you for it. The business one slightly different, but also with the consumer one, these value-added services that comes with it. One, you register at the same time when you apply for your own credit report for a service that we offer. And if anything changes on your credit report, you're going to get an SMS. You're going to ping on your phone and say, something's changed on your credit report. Like, you can quickly go into your credit report, you can have a look, you can see, oh, somebody's applied for credit. I haven't applied for credit. Or here's a judgment loaded against me. No, there's no judgment loaded against me. And you can actively and proactively therefore manage your own credit and your own credit report. And then lastly, we offer as a service a global monitoring service that you can subscribe to. And it looks for when your personal details and credit information of yours pops up on places on the internet that is abnormal or should not be. And it warns you on a monthly basis. You get a report every single month, and it tells you exactly where your information has appeared, why it's appeared there, and the rest of it. And then from a business perspective, same thing. There's a process to follow around it. People could go onto your website. There is a editable PDF that they need to complete. It is a bit of a time-consuming process. And again, here's the magic to it. The more complete it is, the better the quality of the report that you will get back. You email that information back to us, that editable PDF, at businessinfo@experian.com. And within 5 days, we will then return your credit report for your business back to you, so you can see then what it is. We will then, if ever there is a credit inquiry, we will then provide to that inquirer that is going to make the lending decision. So when they make the lending decision, you are exactly on the same page and you know exactly what is going on and what your report actually looks like.
Oh, that's insightful, Ferdie. I think most of us out there don't really know that, and I think that's extremely invaluable to every business owner who runs an SME. So thank you for that. Ferdie, how can our SMEs get their personal and business credit report from Experian?
Very simple. Individual people, you go onto www.mycreditcheck.co.za. Once you're on that landing page, it is a self-service online portal. You enter your ID and you just accept the terms and conditions. You enter email and you enter a phone number. The phone number is important because we send a one-time PIN to that phone number. And once you then have the one-time PIN from the phone number, you enter that and you create your own unique password. Once you've created your own unique password, the system will ask you at random 3 or more questions about your credit profile. You answer those, and voila, you have got your credit report in front of you. As I said, from a business perspective, slightly different. Go onto the NSBC website, download the editable PDF document, complete it in as much detail as what you can, share as much as what you can. Email it to us at businessinfo@experian.com. Within 5 days, we will return your report. And the way we return your report for you is through a managed file transfer site. So it will not end up in the hands of an individual that it should not end up with. It is encrypted, it is secure, and only you who are the recipient of it will be able to open in that MFT file, which will contain your credit report that you can then start working through from top to bottom.
Right, thank you for that, Ferdie. And to add further to that, who can our business owners and entrepreneurs of the SMEs discuss, who can they speak to discuss their personal business credit report with someone, of course, at Experian?
So, Mike, whilst we are busy with this campaign, and every time we join you guys, you have made available a private lounge for us. And we have got consultants manning that as we are speaking at the moment. So any person who is part of NSBC and attending this can visit the lounge, and you can ask either a general question or you can ask specific questions. If you already have your credit report, either the individual one or your business one, they will also be able to assist you if you have any questions around that. And because we are running the next one on the 30th of March with you guys, for those of you that haven't drawn a report yet, I would strongly encourage that you go and draw your reports and sort of figure out with the timing and the 5 days turnaround for your business report, your individual one that's instantaneous, that by then you are ready, because our consultants will yet again be there to answer your questions. The one thing we can not do, unfortunately, and this is because of POPIA, is we cannot on your behalf draw your report. We have to have a legitimate interest in this. And so if you share your screen with us when you have the conversation, our consultants can then know what you are talking about and what you are querying, and they can then be in the best position to provide you with the best possible answer. Other than that, if it's not on this platform, you're always more than welcome to contact us at Experian. If you go onto our website, you will see where's the consumer part of it. We've got a consumer care part of it, as well as a business part of it. And you're more than welcome to contact one of our customer service agents who will then gladly assist you. The one thing I would highly recommend is, rather than trying to call us, drop us an email. We've got a ticketing system. It gets allocated to an agent. That way, no, it doesn't get lost. And with your query and as much information, they can then do the research, and they will then actually come back to you, and you can then start the conversation. Just the big reality of this is, when people do contact us, on average, a call takes anything between 28 and 40 minutes as we go into quite a bit of detail in resolving issues or explaining things to people. So you might end up in a queue where you're going to have to hold on for a while if you want to call.
Ferdie, thank you for that. And of course, just a personal question, Ferdie, what are you hoping will come out of this campaign?
Oh, Mike, for me, the real big thing, and I'm very passionate about this, is the education part, and to put people in the best possible position through this series of online events that we have with you, that they can really understand what credit and their credit reports means. What impact it has and what certain behaviors have, and how it impacts a score and how a lender looks at it. And that they can, through asking the right questions and taking the right steps, put themselves in a position where they get the best possible deal out there. They get the amount that they apply for, the terms and conditions are acceptable, the tenor of your loan that you apply for is what you're looking for. It is at a fair and a good interest rate. And by having a better credit report, ultimately, that you get the best credit possible for your business. That's the first thing for me. Secondly is that we have now seen this world becoming very, very unpredictable. We had COVID-19, we had the unrest in July. We live at the moment with Eastern Europe being in turmoil that we've never seen since World War II. And that people through this entire process just become a lot more financially resilient and robust, and they really understand all of the tools that's there to their disposal, that they can really survive in difficult times, and they can understand how best to manage their finances. That's for businesses on the one side. Two, on individuals, exactly the same thing. For us, it's absolutely critical. I, as a bureau, want to have the best credit reports out there, because the best credit reports out there means when you as an individual apply for credit, that means it's the most accurate picture. So get onto those things, make sure that they are accurate, log the disputes, let's clean and clear them up. We do have people and lenders out there who, from time to time, provide us with inaccurate information, and that could be detrimental to you. You wouldn't even know it unless you have actually checked it. We have checks and balances before we upload things into our database. But that's our ultimate and first version of the truth. But if it's not that, I really want to get it to a position where we have really quality data about every active credit person in South Africa. And then lastly, those credit invisible people, I really want to get them into the whole financial system of South Africa, because it can be regulated, is the safest place, it is the best opportunities that's out there for them, and it will just help us to really kickstart this economy. And through SMEs, I think we can really, really take this 1.9% economic growth rate that the IMF has predicted, and really add a couple of additional 100 basis points to the bottom end of that through what SMEs can do. So that's really what I want out of this. And for small and medium enterprises to flourish and to hear of more great success stories, like the lady from Inverroche, who started a small gin distillery not too far from that very, very small town of Stilbaai, and very smartly grew that business and eventually sold it to the Stal for a couple of hundred of millions of rands. That's what I ultimately want for SME owners, is to grow businesses and to get it to that point where they have a real asset. And I think most SME people, they do what they do because it's fun. It's not a job for them. It's a hobby for them, and that you guys really get the benefit out of it. So, and we, through what we know about credit, can help you to get there. Then it's our privilege and honor to support you, the Small Business Chamber, in that journey.
Well, Ferdie, first of all, I love your passion and, of course, your incredible insights into this. And on a journey, we're certainly not finished with this yet. So I want to thank you for your time. And as I said, it's truly grateful. And I know that, again, it's been incredibly insightful for me. But let me ask all our attendees if you want to give Ferdie a great round of applause. There we go. Ferdie, there we go. Technology is amazing. So Ferdie, thank you. There we go. So Ferdie, thank you very much, and have a wonderful afternoon, and I look forward to the continuation of this incredibly important campaign. So a goodbye to you, and you can just turn off your cam at the bottom and your mic, and we'll chat to you in a few seconds. Thank you, Ferdie.
Thank you to you and all of your people. Really appreciate it.